The chamber is open and full of whispers.
What if Severus Snape raised Harry Potter? Not as some fan fiction fantasy where Snape suddenly becomes a cuddly father figure who bakes cookies and gives warm hugs, but the real Snape, the bitter, resentful, duty-bound potions master who sees James Potter's face every single day in the child he's forced to protect. This is one of those scenarios that sounds simple on the surface, but when you actually start pulling at the threads, the entire fabric of the Harry Potter story completely unravels and reshapes itself into something darker, more complex, and honestly, way more interesting than you might expect. Because here's the thing, this isn't just about changing who raised Harry. This is about fundamentally altering Harry's entire personality, his magical education, his relationships, his house sorting, and ultimately his role in the war against Voldemort. We're talking about a Harry Potter who doesn't grow up as the boy who lived celebrity, but as Severus Snape, a calculated Slytherin prodigy who's been trained in Occlumency since he was 3 years old, and can brew Felix Felicis before his first year at Hogwarts even starts. So buckle up, because we're about to walk through every single year of this alternate timeline, from the moment Petunia Dursley slams the door in Dumbledore's face on November 1st, 1981, all the way through Hogwarts and beyond. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see just how much one single decision, one single change in guardianship, could have transformed the entire wizarding world. Let's start at the very beginning. October 31st, 1981. Voldemort attacks Godric's Hollow. James and Lily Potter die. Harry survives with nothing but a lightning bolt scar. In the original timeline, Dumbledore takes baby Harry to the Dursleys at number 4, Privet Drive, and Petunia reluctantly takes him in because of the blood protection magic tied to Lily's sacrifice. But what if she didn't? What if Petunia Dursley, still seething with decades of resentment over her sister's magical abilities, still bitter about being the ordinary one, still carrying the childhood wounds of watching Lily get whisked away to Hogwarts while she stayed behind, what if she just said no? And that's exactly what happens in this timeline. Dumbledore arrives at the doorstep with baby Harry bundled in blankets, and Petunia takes one look at those green eyes, Lily's eyes, and all she can see is the freak sister who got everything she never could. Vernon's standing behind her, face already turning purple at the sight of anything magical, and Petunia doesn't hesitate. "Not her freak spawn," she shouts, and the door slams shut with such force that the number 4 rattles on its hinges. No amount of Dumbledore's pleading, no explanation of blood wards, no mention of protection changes her mind. The door stays closed, and just like that, the blood protection collapses. Without Petunia taking Harry in, without her accepting him as family, the ancient magic tied to Lily's sacrifice has nowhere to anchor. The wards that would have protected Harry at Privet Drive simply don't exist. Dumbledore stands there on the doorstep, holding a crying baby, and for once, the great Albus Dumbledore doesn't have a backup plan ready. So he does the only thing he can think of. He goes to Severus Snape. Now, you have to understand the context here. Snape has just spent the last few hours in absolute agony. The woman he loved, the only person he ever truly cared about, is dead because of information he gave to Voldemort. Snape was the one who overheard the prophecy. Snape was the one who told Voldemort about the child born at the end of July who could defeat him. Snape was the one who begged Voldemort to spare Lily. And when that didn't work, he went to Dumbledore and begged him to hide the Potters. He switched sides, became a double agent, did everything he could to save her, and it still wasn't enough. She's dead. And her son, James Potter's son, survived. Dumbledore summons Snape to the ruins of Godric's Hollow, and when Snape arrives and sees Lily's body, he breaks. Completely breaks. He cradles her corpse, he sobs, and Dumbledore watches all of this with those calculating blue eyes. And then Dumbledore says the words that will change everything. "You begged for her life, Severus. Now vow to protect it." Snape looks up, confused, and Dumbledore gestures to baby Harry, still crying in his arms. Her son lives. Her sacrifice lives in him. The Dursleys have refused him. If you truly loved Lily, you will ensure her son survives. And Snape, still raw with grief, still desperate to do something, anything, to make up for his role in her death, agrees. But Dumbledore doesn't just take his word for it. Oh no, Dumbledore knows Snape too well. He knows the hatred Snape has for James Potter, knows that Snape sees James every time he looks at Harry's face, so Dumbledore makes him swear an unbreakable vow, right there in the ruins, with a witness pulled from the order. The vow is simple but absolute. Severus Snape will physically guard Harry Potter, will raise him, will protect him from harm until either Voldemort is defeated or Snape himself dies. No loopholes. No escape clauses. Snape's face goes white as the vow binds around his arm in threads of light. But it's done. He's trapped. And when Dumbledore places baby Harry in his arms, Snape looks down at the child and sees James Potter's face staring back at him. The same messy black hair. The same facial structure. But then Harry opens his eyes, and they're green. Lily's green. And Snape's hatred wars with his grief, and he doesn't know which one is stronger. "I will do this," Snape says, his voice barely above a whisper. "But do not expect me to love him." Dumbledore just nods. "I expect you to keep him alive. That will be enough." And so begins the most unlikely guardianship in wizarding history. Now, there's the matter of legalities. You can't just take a famous baby and disappear with him. Harry Potter is the boy who lived, the child who defeated Voldemort, and the entire wizarding world wants to know where he is. So Dumbledore, using his considerable influence, arranges everything. On the Muggle side, he forges adoption documents, even goes so far as to coerce Vernon and Petunia into signing papers that relinquish any claim to Harry. On the wizarding side, he uses his position as chief warlock of the Wizengamot to push through a proxy adoption, citing the Dursleys' refusal and the need for immediate protection. There are questions, of course, whispers about why Snape of all people, but Dumbledore spins it as a strategic move. Snape is a former Death Eater who switched sides. Who better to protect Harry from any remaining Death Eater threats? Who better to teach him to defend himself? And here's the crucial part. Harry is registered under an alias. Not Harry Potter, the famous boy who lived, but Alaric Snape. It's a name pulled from old wizarding records, obscure enough that no one will make the connection, and it allows Harry to grow up away from the spotlight, away from the fame, away from the constant attention that would have defined his childhood. The Order of the Phoenix is told that Harry is in hiding, location secret, protected by Dumbledore's personal arrangements. Sirius Black is in Azkaban, convicted of betraying the Potters and murdering Peter Pettigrew. Remus Lupin is unaware of the arrangement, too stigmatized as a werewolf to be considered a viable guardian. There's no one left to contest it. So Snape takes Harry to the one place he calls home, Spinner's End. Let me paint you a picture of Spinner's End, because this is where Harry grows up, and it could not be more different from Privet Drive. Spinner's End is located in Cokeworth, a derelict mill town in northern England that's been dying slowly for decades. The streets are smog-choked, the factories belch smoke into perpetually gray skies, and the Muggle neighbors whisper about that greasy git and his ghost boy behind closed doors. The house itself is a two-story terrace, squeezed between identical houses on a narrow cobblestone street. The windows are blacked out, not with curtains, but with some kind of charm that makes them look perpetually dark from the outside. The front door is warped and peeling, and there's a smell that permeates everything. Potions. Inside, the ground floor is dominated by what can only be described as a lab kitchen hybrid. Cauldrons bubble eternally on the stove, on the counters, even on the floor. There are ingredients everywhere. Jars of boomslang skin that smell like rot, bundles of asphodel hanging from the ceiling, vials of silvery liquids that glow faintly in the dim light. The parlor has a single armchair, high-backed and worn, positioned to face the door. There are Slytherin pennants on the walls, old and faded, and a bookshelf crammed with dark arts texts and potion journals. The whole place feels oppressive, like the walls are closing in, and there's a constant sound of dripping faucets and bubbling cauldrons that never quite goes away. Harry's room is in the attic. It's small, barely bigger than the cupboard under the stairs at Privet Drive, but it has a window. A single window that looks out over the factories and the smokestacks. There's an iron bed, a potion shelf that Snape fills with age-appropriate brewing supplies as Harry grows, and a desk where Harry will spend countless hours studying. The walls are bare except for one thing, a copy of Advanced Potion Making, annotated in Snape's own handwriting from his school days as the Half-Blood Prince. Snape puts it there when Harry is 5 years old, and it becomes Harry's most treasured possession, not because it's the key to surviving in this house, because Snape's parenting style is, to put it mildly, brutal. From the moment Harry is old enough to understand words, Snape drills one thing into him. You will address me as Sir or Guardian. Never Dad. Never Father. I am not your parent. I am your keeper, and you will show respect. Harry's daily routine starts before dawn. At age 3, Snape begins Occlumency training. Now, Occlumency is the magical discipline of closing one's mind against external penetration, and it's notoriously difficult to learn. Most wizards don't even attempt it until they're adults. But Snape starts Harry at 3 years old, sitting him down in that high-backed chair and staring into his eyes with those black fathomless eyes, and pushing into Harry's mind with Legilimency. At first, Harry doesn't understand what's happening. He just knows that it hurts, that there's a pressure behind his eyes, that he sees flashes of memories he doesn't want to see. But Snape is relentless. "Clear your mind, Potter," he says. And yes, he calls him Potter, not Harry, never Harry. "Build walls, imagine a fortress. Keep me out." It takes months before Harry manages even the slightest resistance, and when he does, Snape gives him the barest nod. "Adequate," he says, and that's the closest thing to praise Harry gets. Mornings are for potion chores. At age 5, Harry is slicing fluxweed, carefully cutting it into precise strips while Snape watches with a critical eye. "Too thick," Snape snaps. Again. By age 8, Harry is brewing Wiggenweld potions on his own, measuring ingredients to the exact gram, stirring clockwise exactly 7 times, and if he makes a mistake, Snape vanishes the potion and makes him start over. There's no yelling, no physical punishment, just cold disappointment in the words that cut deeper than any hex, a disappointing echo of your father. Evenings are for dark arts theory. Snape doesn't teach Harry to cast unforgivable curses, obviously, but he teaches him to recognize them, to defend against them, to understand the mindset of those who use them. "The Marauders were fools," Snape says, his voice dripping with venom. "They hexed for sport, for entertainment, with no understanding of the consequences. You will learn their hexes, not to use them, but to counter them. You will be better than they ever were." And Harry, growing up in this environment, absorbs it all. He learns that affection is weakness. He learns that mistakes are unacceptable. He learns that the only way to earn even a scrap of approval from Snape is to be perfect, to be brilliant, to be everything James Potter wasn't. Punishments in the Snape household are silent and psychological. If Harry fails a potion, he sits facing the wall for hours, not allowed to move, not allowed to speak, just sitting there with his own thoughts and the knowledge that he disappointed the one person responsible for keeping him alive. If Harry talks back, Snape simply stares at him with those cold eyes until Harry looks away, and then Snape says, "Your father had the same arrogance. Look where it got him." Rewards are just as sparse. A nod. A single word. Adequate. Once, when Harry is 6 years old and successfully brews a cure for boils without any guidance, Snape pauses, looks at the potion, and says, "Acceptable work." Harry clings to those 2 words for weeks. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. Snape does protect him, not out of love, not out of affection, but because of the vow. When Harry is 8 years old and falls off a chair in the lab, cutting his knee badly enough that blood soaks through his trousers, Snape is there in an instant. He doesn't comfort Harry, doesn't tell him it's okay, but he cleans the wound with a stinging potion, heals it with a muttered spell, and then says, "More care, Potter. I will not have you bleeding out in my house." When Lucius Malfoy visits Spinner's End that same year, sweeping in with his cane and his aristocratic sneer, and makes a comment about the Potter boy living in squalor, Snape's wand is at Lucius's throat before the sentence is finished. "You will not speak of him," Snape says, his voice deadly quiet. "You will not acknowledge his presence. You will not mention him to anyone. Am I understood?" Lucius, for all his power and influence, backs down. Because he sees something in Snape's eyes that makes it clear Snape will kill to protect this child, not because he loves him, but because the vow demands it. And Snape always keeps his vows. So Harry grows up in this strange, cold, duty-bound relationship. He doesn't love Snape. How could he? But he respects him, fears him, and in some twisted way, understands him. Because Snape never lies to him. Snape never pretends to be something he's not. And in a world where Harry will later discover that almost every adult in his life has lied to him, or manipulated him, that brutal honesty becomes something Harry values. Now let's talk about how this changes Harry as a person, because this is where things get really interesting. Canon Harry Potter is brave, impulsive, loyal to a fault, and has a saving people thing that constantly gets him into trouble. He's a Gryffindor through and through, charging into danger without thinking, trusting his friends implicitly, and always choosing to do the right thing even when it costs him. That Harry is shaped by the Dursleys' neglect and abuse, yes, but also by Ron and Hermione's friendship, by Dumbledore's guidance, by the love he finds at Hogwarts. Alaric Snape, the Harry of this timeline, is none of those things. This Harry is calculated. He's been trained since age 3 to guard his thoughts, to hide his emotions, to never let anyone see weakness. He's a Slytherin in every sense of the word, ambitious, cunning, and willing to do whatever it takes to survive. He doesn't trust easily, because Snape has taught him that trust is a liability. He doesn't charge into danger, because Snape has drilled into him that recklessness gets you killed. And he absolutely does not have a saving people thing, because Snape has made it very clear that the only person Harry is responsible for is himself. Academically, this Harry is a prodigy. By age 11, before he even gets his Hogwarts letter, he's already mastered the entire Half-Blood Prince textbook. He can brew Felix Felicis, the luck potion that's so complex it takes 6 months and is NEWT level. He can brew Veritaserum, the truth serum that's restricted by the Ministry. He knows the properties of every potion ingredient, knows which substitutions work and which ones will cause an explosion, and he's developed his own variations on standard potions because Snape's annotations taught him to experiment. His occlumency is so advanced that even Snape has trouble breaking through his shields. Remember, Canon Harry never manages to learn occlumency properly because he can't let go of his emotions, can't stop himself from feeling. But this Harry has been building mental walls since he was 3. By age 11, his mind is a fortress, and the idea of someone like Voldemort being able to slip into his thoughts and plant visions is laughable. His knowledge of the dark arts is extensive, not because he wants to use them, but because Snape has taught him that ignorance is death. He knows how to recognize the Imperious Curse, how to throw off its effects. He knows the wand movement for the Killing Curse, even if he's never cast it. He knows how to counter hexes, how to identify cursed objects, how to brew antidotes to most common poisons. He's been trained as a soldier, not a student. But it's not just his magical abilities that are different. His entire temperament has changed. This Harry is cynical. He's sarcastic. He has a venom in his words that rivals Snape's own, and he's not afraid to use it. When he encounters stupidity, he doesn't suffer it gladly. When he sees Gryffindor recklessness, he sneers at it. Gryffindor idiocy again becomes one of his favorite phrases, and he means it. He's also paranoid. Growing up in Spinner's End, in that oppressive house with Snape's constant vigilance, has taught him to always watch his back, to always have an escape route, to never fully relax. He has panic attacks sometimes, though he'd never admit it. Moments where the walls feel like they're closing in and he can't breathe. But he's learned to hide it, to push it down, to build those occlumency walls around his emotions until even he doesn't know what he's feeling anymore. Physically, he looks different too. He still has the messy black hair and the green eyes, but Snape has made sure his glasses are intact and functional, not broken and taped like they would have been at the Dursleys. There's a reason for this, and it's not kindness. Snape looks at those glasses, at that messy hair, and he sees James Potter. And Snape wants to see James. He wants the daily reminder of the man he hated, because it fuels his resentment, keeps him sharp, keeps him from ever softening toward this child. Remove them, Snape once said when Harry asked if he could get his eyes fixed magically. No. Face the ghost daily, Potter, as I do. But Harry, clever Harry, has learned to manage his appearance in other ways. He uses a custom potion, something Snape brews, to slick his hair back into smooth waves instead of the chaotic mess it naturally forms. He wears black robes, always black, tailored and neat, because Snape demands precision in all things. He looks like a mini Snape, and the resemblance is intentional. It's armor. It's a way of saying I belong to him. I'm under his protection. Don't mess with me. And perhaps most importantly, this Harry hates his father. Absolutely despises James Potter. Because when Harry was 8 years old, Snape showed him a memory in a pensieve. Not the memory of James and Lily's death, but a memory from Snape's 5th year at Hogwarts. The memory of James Potter and Sirius Black hexing Snape by the lake, stripping him, humiliating him, while the crowd of students laughed. Harry watched his father, the man everyone tells him was a hero, act like a bully. And then Snape told him the rest. How James and his friends tormented Snape for 7 years. How they called him Snivelus. How they nearly killed him by tricking him into the shrieking shack where a werewolf waited. Your father, Snape said, his voice cold and precise, was a thief who stole your mother from someone who truly loved her. He was an arrogant, strutting bully who hid behind his wealth and his friends. And he got your mother killed. Harry, 8 years old and already cynical, looked at the pensieve, and then at Snape, and he made a decision. He went to his room, found the one photograph he had of James and Lily, a photo that had somehow survived Godric's Hollow, and he burned it, watched it curl and blacken in the fireplace. And from that day forward, whenever anyone mentioned James Potter, Harry's face would go cold, and he'd say, "I have no father." So that's who Harry is when he turns 11 and gets his Hogwarts letter. Not the boy who lived, not the hero everyone's waiting for, but Alaric Snape, a cold, brilliant, damaged child who's been forged in the fires of Spinner's End into something sharp and dangerous. The Hogwarts letter arrives on Harry's 11th birthday, July 31st, 1991, delivered by a tawny owl that lands on the kitchen table while Harry is chopping scarab beetles for a potion. Snape plucks the letter from the owl's leg, dismisses the bird with a wave of his wand, and hands the envelope to Harry without ceremony. "You knew this was coming," Snape says. "It's not a question." Harry nods. Of course he knew. Snape has been preparing him for Hogwarts since he was old enough to hold a wand. He opens the letter, scans the contents, the list of required books and supplies, and then looks up at Snape. "When do we go to Diagon Alley?" "Tomorrow," Snape says. "And Potter? You will be sorted into Slytherin. I will accept nothing less." Harry doesn't argue. He's known for years that Slytherin is where he belongs. Gryffindor is for the reckless, the foolish, the people like his father. Slytherin is for the cunning, the ambitious, the survivors. And Harry is nothing if not a survivor. The trip to Diagon Alley is efficient and joyless. Snape sweeps through the crowds with Harry trailing behind, and people stare. They always stare at Snape, at his black robes and his greasy hair, and his permanent scowl. But today they're also staring at the boy with him. A boy who looks like a younger version of Snape, who moves with the same precise, controlled grace, who doesn't gawk at the magical shops like other Muggle-raised children would. They go to Gringotts first, and this is where things get interesting. Because Harry doesn't have a vault. The Potter Vault exists, Vault 687, filled with the gold and treasures of the Potter family. But Harry can't access it, not as Alaric Snape. Dumbledore has arranged for a trust fund, a separate account that Snape can draw from for Harry's expenses. But it's not the same as the wealth Harry would have had as Harry Potter. And Snape makes sure Harry knows it. "Your father's gold sits in a vault you cannot touch," Snape says as they descend into the depths of Gringotts. "Because you are not Harry Potter. You are Alaric Snape, and you will live within the means I provide. Remember that." Harry does remember. It's another reminder that his father's legacy is something he's been cut off from, and he doesn't mourn it. He doesn't want James Potter's gold any more than he wants James Potter's name. They buy his supplies, a cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, scales, brass, a telescope, files, glass. The books are easy because Harry has already read most of them, but Snape buys them anyway because Hogwarts requires it. They go to Ollivander's for a wand, and this is the moment Harry has been waiting for. The shop is dusty and cramped, and Mr. Ollivander emerges from the back with those wide, silvery eyes that seem to see too much. He looks at Harry, then at Snape, and his eyebrows rise. "Ah," he says, "I wondered when I might see you. Though I confess I expected a different surname." Snape's expression doesn't change, but his hand moves fractionally toward his wand. A warning. Ollivander smiles, thin and knowing. "No matter. Let us find you a wand, young man." He pulls boxes from the shelves, and Harry tries wand after wand. Maple and phoenix feather, no. Oak and dragon heartstring, no. Ebony and unicorn hair, no. Each wand feels wrong, inert, and Ollivander's frown deepens with each failure. "Curious," he murmurs, "very curious." And then he pauses, his eyes going distant, and he disappears into the back of the shop. When he returns, he's holding a single box, worn and dusty, and he opens it with reverent care. "Holly and phoenix feather," he says. 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry takes the wand, and the moment his fingers close around it, he feels it. Warmth spreading up his arm, a sense of rightness, and the wand emits a shower of red and gold sparks that illuminate the dim shop. Ollivander's face goes pale. "Oh yes," he whispers. "Yes, that's the one." Snape's voice is sharp. "What is it?" Ollivander looks at him, and there's something like pity in his eyes. "The phoenix whose tail feather resides in this wand gave one other feather, just one. And that wand gave Harry Potter his scar. The silence in the shop is deafening. Harry stares at the wand in his hand, and he understands this wand is the brother to Voldemort's wand. The two wands are connected, bound by the same phoenix core, and that means something. Something important. Snape's jaw tightens. "We'll take it," he says, and his voice is flat, emotionless, but Harry knows him well enough to hear the tension underneath. They leave Ollivander's, and Snape doesn't speak for the rest of the trip. Not when they buy Harry's robes at Madame Malkin's. Not when they stop at the apothecary for potion ingredients. Not even when they return to Spinner's End. It's only later, when Harry is packing his trunk for Hogwarts, that Snape appears in the doorway of his attic room. "The wand chooses the wizard, Potter," Snape says quietly. "Remember that. You did not choose to be connected to the Dark Lord. But you are, and that connection will define your life, whether you wish it or not." Harry looks up from his trunk, meets Snape's black eyes, and nods. "I understand, sir." Snape studies him for a long moment, and then he does something he's never done before. He reaches into his robes and pulls out a small vial filled with a silvery blue potion that glows faintly in the dim light. "Felix Felicis," Snape says. "Liquid luck. I brewed this years ago, and I've kept it for an emergency. You will take it with you, to Hogwarts. You will hide it, and you will use it only if your life depends on it. Do you understand?" Harry takes the vial, feeling the weight of it in his palm, and he understands what this means. This is Snape's way of protecting him, of giving him a tool that might save his life, when Snape can't be there to do it himself. "Yes, sir," Harry says. "Thank you." Snape's expression doesn't soften, but he nods once, sharp and final. "Do not make me regret this, Potter." And then he's gone, sweeping out of the room and leaving Harry alone with his trunk and his thoughts in the vial of Felix Felicis that represents the closest thing to affection Severus Snape is capable of giving. September 1st, 1991. King's Cross Station, Platform 9 3/4. Harry stands beside Snape on the platform, his trunk loaded onto the Hogwarts Express, and he watches the other students saying goodbye to their families. There are hugs, tears, mothers fussing over their children's robes, fathers giving last-minute advice. It's a scene of warmth and love, and everything Harry has never had. Snape doesn't hug him, doesn't tell him to write, doesn't say he'll miss him. He simply looks down at Harry with those fathomless black eyes and says, "You know what is expected of you. Yes, sir, you will excel in your studies. You will be sorted into Slytherin. You will not draw attention to yourself, and you will remember everything I have taught you." "I will." Snape's hand moves just for a moment, and Harry thinks he might actually touch him, might put a hand on his shoulder or something. But then Snape's hand falls back to his side, and the moment passes. "Go," Snape says. Harry boards the train. He finds an empty compartment near the back and settles in, pulling out a book. Advanced Potion Making, the same annotated copy from his room at Spinner's End. He's read it 100 times, but it's familiar, comforting in a way nothing else is. And he loses himself in the prince's notes about counterclockwise stirring and the properties of powdered moonstone. The compartment door slides open. Harry looks up to see a boy with white blonde hair and a pointed face, flanked by two larger boys who look like trolls stuffed into Hogwarts robes. "Is this compartment taken?" the blonde boy asks, and his voice is aristocratic, bored. Harry recognizes him instantly. Draco Malfoy. He's seen him before, during those uncomfortable visits to Spinner's End when Lucius Malfoy came to discuss Death Eater business with Snape. Draco was always there, lurking in the background, and the two of them had eyed each other with mutual suspicion. "It is now," Harry says, and he doesn't move his bag from the seat across from him. Draco's eyes narrow. "Do I know you?" "Alaric Snape," Harry says, and he watches Draco's expression shift from suspicion to surprise to calculation. "Snape," Draco repeats. "As in Professor Snape?" "Guardian," Harry corrects. "Not father." Draco processes this, and then he smirks and pushes past Crabbe and Goyle to sit down across from Harry. "Well then, I suppose we should talk." And they do. Not as friends, not yet, but as two boys who understand the game they're playing. Draco talks about his father's expectations, about the importance of blood purity, about how Slytherin is the only house worth being in. Harry listens, nods in the right places, and doesn't reveal anything about himself that matters. It's a dance, a careful negotiation, and by the time the train pulls into Hogsmeade Station, they've reached an unspoken agreement. They're not enemies, not allies either, but not enemies. The first years cross the lake in boats, and Harry sees Hogwarts for the first time. The castle rises from the cliffs like something out of a dream. All towers and turrets and glowing windows, and for just a moment, Harry feels something he hasn't felt in years. Wonder. But he pushes it down, locks it away behind his occlumency walls because wonder is weakness, and weakness gets you hurt. They're led into the Great Hall, and Harry keeps his eyes forward, doesn't gawk at the floating candles or the enchanted ceiling. He's here for one purpose: to be sorted into Slytherin and to survive the next 7 years. Professor McGonagall calls names alphabetically, and Harry waits. Boot, Terry, Ravenclaw. Brocklehurst, Mandy, Ravenclaw. Brown, Lavender, Gryffindor. The list goes on. And then finally, Potter Harry. Except that's not his name anymore. Harry tenses, waiting. But McGonagall doesn't call that name. She calls Snape Alaric instead, and Harry steps forward. The whispers start immediately. Snape, as in Professor Snape. He has a son? But Harry ignores them, walks to the stool, and sits down. McGonagall places the sorting hat on his head, and the world goes dark. Well, well, a voice says in his ear. What have we here? A Potter who isn't a Potter. A Gryffindor who isn't a Gryffindor. How very interesting. Harry doesn't respond. He's been trained for this. Snape warned him that the sorting hat reads minds, and Harry has his Occlumency walls up, strong and impenetrable. The hat chuckles. Oh, you're good. Very good. Snape taught you well. But I don't need to break through your walls to see what you are, boy. You're cunning, ambitious. You'd do anything to survive. And you hate your father with a passion that would make a Slytherin proud. Then sort me there, Harry thinks. I could, the hat muses. You'd do well in Slytherin, but there's more to you than that. There's bravery here, buried deep, and loyalty, though you'd never admit it. You could be great in Gryffindor, you know, like your parents. My parents are dead, Harry thinks coldly, and I am nothing like them. The hat is silent for a long moment, and then it laughs, loud and delighted. No, you're not. Very well, then. Better be Slytherin. The last word echoes through the Great Hall, and Harry removes the hat and walks to the Slytherin table. There's scattered applause, and he sees Draco Malfoy smirking at him, nodding in approval. Harry sits down, and he doesn't look at the staff table. Doesn't look at Snape, because he knows Snape won't show any reaction. But he knows, somewhere deep down, that Snape is satisfied. The feast passes in a blur. Harry eats mechanically, listens to the chatter around him, and catalogues information. Who's friendly with whom? Who's ambitious? Who's dangerous? By the time Dumbledore dismisses them and the prefects lead the first years down to the dungeons, Harry has already identified the key players in his year. Draco Malfoy, obviously. Theodore Nott, quiet and intelligent. Blaise Zabini, who watches everyone with calculating eyes. Pansy Parkinson, who's already attached herself to Draco. And Daphne Greengrass, who sits apart from the others and reads a book during the feast. The Slytherin common room is everything Harry expected, green and silver, low ceilings, windows that look out into the murky depths of the lake. It's cold but not uncomfortably so, and there's a sense of history here, of tradition. The prefect gives them the password, pureblood, which makes Harry's lip curl in distaste, but he doesn't comment. The dormitories are shared, 4 boys to a room, and Harry ends up with Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle. Draco immediately claims the best bed, near the window, and Harry takes the one farthest from the door. He unpacks his trunk in silence, sets up his potions ingredients on the shelf above his bed, and places the vial of Felix Felicis in a hidden pocket of his robes. That night, lying in bed and listening to Crabbe's snoring, Harry thinks about Spinner's End, about Snape's cold voice and colder eyes, about the years of training, the occlumency drills, the potion lessons, the constant pressure to be perfect. And he thinks about the vow, the unbreakable vow that binds Snape to protect him, and he wonders if Snape resents him for it. He knows the answer, of course. Snape does resent him. Snape will always resent him. But Snape will also always protect him, because that's what the vow demands. And Harry, lying there in the darkness of the Slytherin dormitory, makes his own vow. He will survive Hogwarts. He will excel. He will prove that he's nothing like James Potter, that he's better, smarter, more cunning. And he will never ever let anyone see weakness, because that's what Severus Snape taught him. And if there's one thing Harry has learned in his 11 years of life, it's that Snape is always right. Part 2 of 3. What if Snape raised Harry? 6,000 words. Harry's first year at Hogwarts begins the way Snape trained him, with observation, calculation, and zero trust. While other first years are making friends and exploring the castle with wide-eyed wonder, Harry is cataloging exits, identifying threats, and maintaining his occlumency shields at all times. Because here's the thing about being raised by Severus Snape. You don't get to be a normal child. You don't get to relax. You're always on guard, always 3 steps ahead, always prepared for the worst. The first potions class happens on a Friday, and Harry has been dreading it. Not because he's worried about the subject. He could brew circles around anyone in his year, but because he knows Snape is going to treat him exactly the same as every other student. Worse, probably. Snape made that very clear before Harry left for Hogwarts. I will show you no favoritism, Potter. In my classroom, you are just another student. Fail, and you will face the consequences. Snape sweeps into the dungeon classroom like a bat out of hell, robes billowing, and the first years fall silent instantly. His black eyes scan the room, lingering on no one, and then he begins his speech. The same speech he gives every year, about the subtle science and exact art of potion making, about fame and glory, about stopper death, and bottle fame. Harry has heard variations of this speech his entire life, usually delivered over a bubbling cauldron at Spinner's End, and he keeps his face carefully neutral. Then Snape's eyes land on him. Potter, he says, and there's a collective intake of breath from the Gryffindors in the room. They know that name. Everyone knows that name. But Snape isn't looking at the Gryffindor side. He's looking at the Slytherin side, at Harry. Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? It's a test. Not of Harry's knowledge. Snape knows Harry can answer this in his sleep, but of Harry's ability to handle being singled out in front of his peers. Harry meets Snape's eyes, keeps his voice level, and says, "The draught of living death, sir." A powerful sleeping potion? Correct. And where would you look if I asked you to find me a bezoar? The stomach of a goat, sir. It cures most poisons. And what is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, sir. Also known as aconite. Snape's expression doesn't change, but Harry sees the fractional nod, the tiny acknowledgement that he's done well. Then Snape turns to the rest of the class and says, 5 points to Slytherin for Mr. Snape's adequate knowledge. The rest of you would do well to follow his example and actually read your textbooks. The class proceeds, and Harry brews a simple cure for boils with mechanical precision. He doesn't show off, doesn't add the prince's modifications that would make the potion more effective, because Snape taught him that drawing attention is dangerous. He brews it exactly according to the textbook instructions, and when Snape inspects it at the end of class, he gives another fractional nod and moves on without comment. But across the room, Neville Longbottom's cauldron explodes, covering him and his partner Seamus Finnegan in angry red boils. And Snape's fury is immediate and terrifying. He vanishes the potion with a wave of his wand, sends Neville to the hospital wing with a scathing comment about incompetence, and docks 20 points from Gryffindor. Harry watches this and feels nothing. Neville is weak, careless, exactly the kind of student who won't survive in the real world. Snape is right to be harsh with him. After class, as the students file out, Snape's voice stops Harry at the door. Potter. A word. Harry waits until the classroom is empty, then approaches Snape's desk. Snape doesn't look up from the essays he's grading, just says, "You performed adequately today. Continue to do so. Dismissed." That's it. No praise, no encouragement, just the same cold acknowledgement Harry has received his entire life. And Harry nods, says yes, sir, and leaves. Because this is normal. This is what he expects. And in a strange way, it's comforting. Snape isn't going to change just because they're at Hogwarts. The rules are still the same. But not everything at Hogwarts is the same as Spinner's End. There are other classes, other professors, and Harry quickly discovers that he's ahead of his peers in almost every subject. Defense against the dark arts is taught by Professor Quirrell, a nervous, stuttering man who wears a ridiculous turban and reeks of garlic. Harry notices the smell immediately, that underlying rot beneath the garlic, and his instincts, honed by years of Snape's paranoia training, scream danger. He makes a note to avoid Quirrell as much as possible, and to never turn his back on him. Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall is interesting. She's strict, demanding, and doesn't tolerate nonsense, which Harry respects. When she demonstrates turning a match into a needle, Harry succeeds on his third try, earning a rare smile from McGonagall, and 10 points for Slytherin. Hermione Granger, a Gryffindor with bushy hair and an insufferable know-it-all attitude, succeeds on her second try, and Harry makes another note. She's competition. Charms with Professor Flitwick is easy. History of magic with Professor Binns is torture. But Harry uses the time to practice Occlumency, building and rebuilding his mental walls while Binns drones on about goblin rebellions. Herbology with Professor Sprout is tolerable, though Harry finds the subject less interesting than potions. And astronomy is just memorization, which Harry excels at. But it's flying lessons that cause the first real conflict. Madam Hooch takes the first years out to the grounds, lines them up next to broomsticks, and teaches them how to summon the broom to their hand. Harry's broom jumps to his hand immediately, and he feels a thrill of excitement that he quickly suppresses. Excitement is weakness. But then Neville Longbottom predictably loses control of his broom and crashes, breaking his wrist. Madam Hooch takes Neville to the hospital wing, and the moment she's gone, Draco Malfoy picks up something from the grass. A Remembrall, the glass ball Neville's grandmother sent him. Draco holds it up, smirking. Look what Longbottom dropped. Maybe if he gave this a squeeze, he'd remember to fall on his fat arse less. The Gryffindors bristle, and Harry watches with detached interest. This is Slytherin versus Gryffindor, the house rivalry that Snape has told him about, and he's curious to see how it plays out. Then a Gryffindor boy steps forward. Red hair, freckles, hand-me-down robes. Ron Weasley. Give it here, Malfoy, he says, his face flushing red. Draco's smirk widens. I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find. How about up a tree? He mounts his broom and kicks off, hovering 20 feet in the air, and Harry sees the calculation in his eyes. Draco is testing the Gryffindors, seeing if any of them are brave enough or stupid enough to follow. And sure enough, another Gryffindor steps forward. A girl with red hair. Lavender brown. No, wait. That's not right. Harry searches his memory and places her. Faye Dunbar. No, that's not right either. He realizes he doesn't actually know her name because he hasn't bothered to learn the Gryffindors' names. They're not important? But then someone else mounts a broom. A boy with messy black hair and glasses. Wait, no, that's not possible. Harry doesn't have a twin. He looks closer and realizes it's not a Gryffindor at all. It's Dean Thomas. No, Harry is getting confused. He shakes his head, refocuses, and realizes the problem. He's been so focused on Slytherins that he hasn't paid attention to the other houses at all. Actually, let's rewind. What actually happens is this. Draco takes the Remembrall, and Harry, standing with the other Slytherins, watches and says nothing. Because Neville Longbottom is not his problem. Neville is a Gryffindor, weak and clumsy, and if he can't protect his own belongings, that's his failure. Draco eventually gets bored and tosses the Remembrall back to the Gryffindors, and the moment passes without incident. But Harry files it away. Draco likes to provoke. Draco likes attention, and that's a weakness Harry can exploit if he ever needs to. The weeks pass and Harry settles into a routine. Classes during the day, homework in the evening, Occlumency practice before bed. He doesn't make friends, not really, but he forms alliances. Draco Malfoy is useful because of his family connections. Theodore Nott is intelligent and quiet, someone Harry can study with without unnecessary conversation. Blaise Zabini is observant and cynical, qualities Harry appreciates. And Daphne Greengrass is competent and doesn't ask personal questions, which makes her tolerable. The Slytherin common room becomes his territory. He claims a chair near the fireplace, and the other students learn quickly not to bother him when he's reading. He helps younger students with their potions homework, not out of kindness, but because it reinforces his reputation as the best in his year. And when older students try to bully the first years, Harry steps in with a cold stare and a cutting remark that usually ends the confrontation before it begins. Because here's what Harry understands that the other first years don't. Hogwarts is not a safe place. It's a battlefield. Every house is a faction. Every student is a potential threat or ally. And the only way to survive is to be smarter, more prepared, and more ruthless than everyone else. Halloween arrives, and with it, the troll incident. Harry is in the Great Hall when Professor Quirrell bursts in, screaming about a troll in the dungeons, and then faints dramatically. Dumbledore orders the prefects to take the students back to their dormitories, and Harry follows the Slytherin prefects toward the dungeons. But his mind is racing. A troll in the dungeons. The Slytherin common room is in the dungeons. This doesn't make sense. Why would Dumbledore send them directly toward the danger, unless it's a test or a distraction? Harry's paranoia, instilled by years of Snape's training, kicks into overdrive. He slips away from the group, using a shortcut Snape mentioned once in passing, and makes his way toward the third-floor corridor, the forbidden corridor that Dumbledore warned students away from on the first night. Because if there's a troll in the dungeons, and everyone is being sent to the dungeons, then whatever Dumbledore is protecting on the third floor is now unguarded. He reaches the third-floor corridor and hears voices. Snape's voice, low and angry, and Quirrell's voice, stuttering and nervous. Harry presses himself against the wall, invisible in the shadows, and listens. "I don't know how the troll got in," Quirrell is saying. "I swear, Severus, I don't know. Your incompetence is staggering," Snape hisses. "The third floor was left unguarded because you were supposed to be watching the dungeons. If the Dark Lord's servant is in this castle, you've just given them the perfect opportunity." Harry's blood runs cold. The Dark Lord's servant, Voldemort's servant, here at Hogwarts. He doesn't wait to hear more. He turns and runs, not back to the common room, but to the library, to the restricted section, because he needs information, and he needs it now. But the library is locked, and Harry doesn't have the skills to break in. Not yet. So he goes back to the common room, slips into his dormitory, and lies awake all night thinking. Voldemort's servant is at Hogwarts. Dumbledore is protecting something on the third floor, and Snape knows about it. The next morning, Harry corners Snape after potions class. "Sir, I need to speak with you, privately." Snape's eyes narrow, but he dismisses the other students and wards the door. "What is it, Potter?" "Last night, during the troll incident, I heard you speaking with Professor Quirrell. You mentioned the Dark Lord's servant." Snape's expression goes dangerously cold. "You were eavesdropping." "You taught me to gather information, sir." "I gathered it." For a long moment, Snape just stares at him, and Harry can feel the pressure of Occlumency probing at his shields. But Harry's walls hold, and eventually Snape withdraws. "What did you hear?" Harry repeats the conversation word for word, and Snape's jaw tightens. "You will forget what you heard. You will not investigate further. You will stay away from the third floor. Am I understood?" "Yes, sir." "But if Voldemort's servant is here, shouldn't I be prepared? Shouldn't I know what I'm facing?" "You are facing nothing," Snape snaps. "You are 11 years old. You will attend your classes, complete your assignments, and leave the Dark Lord to those equipped to handle him." "That is an order, Potter." Harry nods, but he doesn't agree. Because Snape taught him to be paranoid, to always have a backup plan, to never rely on anyone else for his survival. And if Voldemort's servant is at Hogwarts, Harry needs to know who it is and what they're after. Over the next few weeks, Harry watches Quirrell. He notices the way Quirrell avoids Snape, the way he flinches when Dumbledore looks at him, the way he never takes off that ridiculous turban. And Harry remembers the smell, that rot beneath the garlic, and he starts to form a theory. But he needs proof. Christmas approaches, and most students go home for the holidays. Draco invites Harry to Malfoy Manor, but Harry declines. He's going back to Spinner's End, back to Snape, and he's going to demand answers. The train ride back to London is quiet. Harry sits alone in a compartment, reading advanced potion making, and doesn't look up until the train pulls into King's Cross. Snape is waiting on the platform, black robes stark against the holiday decorations, and Harry follows him out of the station without a word. They apparate to Spinner's End, and the moment they're inside, Harry turns to Snape and says, "It's Quirrell." Snape freezes. "What?" "Voldemort's servant. It's Quirrell. He smells wrong, like something rotting under the garlic. He avoids you. He stutters except when he thinks no one is listening. And he never removes his turban. I think Voldemort is possessing him. I think Voldemort is using Quirrell's body as a host, and the turban is hiding the evidence." Snape stares at him, and for the first time in Harry's life, he sees something like shock in Snape's eyes. "How did you reach this conclusion?" "You taught me to observe, sir." "I observed." Snape is silent for a long moment, and then he does something unexpected. He sits down in his armchair, gestures for Harry to sit across from him, and says, "Tell me everything." So Harry does. He tells Snape about the smell, about the overheard conversation, about the way Quirrell acts. And when he's done, Snape leans back in his chair and closes his eyes. "You're correct," Snape says finally. "The Dark Lord is using Quirrell as a host. He's after the Philosopher's Stone, hidden on the third floor. Dumbledore is protecting it. But the protections will not hold forever. Then we need to stop him. We need to do nothing, Snape says sharply. Dumbledore is handling it. You will stay out of it. And if Dumbledore fails? Snape opens his eyes, and there's something dark and terrible in his gaze. Then I will handle it. Because the vow demands that I keep you alive, Potter, and I will not allow the Dark Lord to kill you. Not while I still draw breath. It's the closest thing to affection Snape has ever expressed, and Harry feels something twist in his chest. Not love, he doesn't love Snape, but something like respect, something like trust. Yes, sir, Harry says quietly. Christmas at Spinner's End is exactly what Harry expects. Cold, joyless, and filled with work. Snape doesn't give him presents, doesn't decorate, doesn't acknowledge the holiday at all. But on Christmas morning, Harry wakes to find a package on his bed. Inside is a book, Most Potente Potions, a restricted text from the Hogwarts library. There's no note, no card, but Harry knows it's from Snape. It's a gift, in Snape's own way. A gift of knowledge, of trust, of acknowledgement that Harry is ready for more advanced material. Harry spends the rest of the holiday reading Most Potente Potions and brewing experimental drafts in Snape's lab. They don't talk much, but they work side by side, and there's a comfortable silence between them that Harry has never experienced before. It's not warmth, not affection, but it's something. It's enough. When Harry returns to Hogwarts in January, he's more determined than ever to figure out what's happening with the Philosopher's Stone. He starts spending time in the library, researching Nicholas Flamel and the stone's properties. He learns that the stone creates the elixir of life, granting immortality, and he understands why Voldemort wants it. Voldemort is weak, barely alive, and the elixir could restore him to full power. Harry also starts paying attention to the other students, the ones he dismissed before. Hermione Granger, the Gryffindor know-it-all, is always in the library, always researching, and Harry realizes she's doing the same thing he is. She's investigating the stone, and she's not alone. Ron Weasley and another Gryffindor, a boy named Harry Potter. Wait, no, that's not right. Harry shakes his head, confused. There is no other Harry Potter. He's Harry Potter. Except he's not. He's Alaric Snape, and the confusion makes his head hurt. He pushes the thought away and refocuses. The point is, the Gryffindors are investigating, and that means they're going to do something stupid. Gryffindors always do something stupid. Sure enough, in late May, Harry overhears Hermione Granger talking to Ron Weasley in the library. Snape is trying to steal the stone, she's saying. I saw him threatening Quirrell in the forest. He's going to get past Fluffy and take it. Harry's blood boils. Snape is not trying to steal the stone. Snape is trying to protect it, trying to stop Quirrell, and these idiotic Gryffindors think he's the villain. He wants to march over there and tell them the truth, but he stops himself. Because if he reveals what he knows, he'll have to explain how he knows it, and that will lead back to Snape, and Snape will be furious. So instead, Harry watches. He watches as the Gryffindors plan their idiotic rescue mission. He watches as they sneak out after curfew, heading for the 3rd floor, and he makes a decision. He's going to follow them, not to help them, but to make sure they don't get Snape killed with their stupidity. Harry slips out of the Slytherin common room, using every stealth technique Snape ever taught him, and follows the Gryffindors to the 3rd floor. He watches as they open the door, as they face the 3-headed dog Snape mentioned, Fluffy, and as they jump down the trap door into the darkness below. Harry hesitates. Snape told him to stay out of it. But Snape also taught him to be prepared, to have a backup plan, to never rely on anyone else. And if those Gryffindors are walking into a trap, someone needs to be there to clean up the mess. He jumps. The fall is cushioned by a plant, Devil's Snare, and Harry recognizes it immediately from herbology. He relaxes, lets the plant release him, and drops to the floor below. The Gryffindors are already gone, moving deeper into the chambers, and Harry follows at a distance. He passes through a room full of flying keys, a giant chessboard where the pieces have been smashed to bits, and a logic puzzle involving potions that Harry solves in seconds. Snape's puzzle. Of course, Snape would use potions as a defense. Harry takes the correct potion, the one that leads forward, and steps through the flames into the final chamber. And there, standing in front of the Mirror of Eriside, is Quirrell, and facing him, wand drawn, is a Gryffindor boy with messy black hair and glasses. Wait, that's not possible. Harry is the one with messy black hair and glasses, except his hair isn't messy anymore. He uses the potion to slick it back, and he's standing in the shadows. not in front of the mirror. Harry's mind races, and then he understands. There is another student here, someone who looks like him, someone who has his face, his hair, his eyes. And Quirrell is talking to him, saying something about the stone, about serving Lord Voldemort. Then Quirrell unwraps his turban, and Harry sees it. The face on the back of Quirrell's head, Voldemort's face, pale and snake-like with red eyes that burn with hatred. Harry Potter, Voldemort hisses. The boy who lived, come to die. And Harry realizes the truth. That boy standing in front of the mirror isn't just someone who looks like him. That's Harry Potter. The real Harry Potter, the one everyone thinks is dead or hidden away. Except he's not hidden. He's here. He's been here all along. But that doesn't make sense. Harry is Harry Potter, except he's not. He's Alaric Snape, so who is that boy? The confusion is overwhelming, and Harry's Occlumency walls start to crack. He presses himself against the wall, trying to think, trying to understand. And then he hears Voldemort speak again. The stone, boy. Give me the stone. The other Harry, the Gryffindor Harry, shakes his head. Never. Quirrell lunges forward, grabbing the boy's arm, and then he screams. His hand is burning, smoking, and he releases the boy and stumbles backward. Voldemort shrieks in fury, and Quirrell collapses, his body convulsing. Harry doesn't think. He acts. He steps out of the shadows, wand raised, and casts the first spell that comes to mind. Incendio, fire erupts from his wand, engulfing Quirrell's robes, and Quirrell screams again. The other Harry stares at him, shocked, and Harry meets his eyes. Green eyes. Lily's eyes. The same eyes Harry sees in the mirror every morning. Run, Harry says, and they run. Both of them, side by side, through the flames and back through the chambers. They don't speak, don't stop, just run until they burst out of the third-floor corridor and into the main castle. And then they collapse, gasping for breath, and stare at each other. Who are you? The other Harry asks. Alaric Snape, Harry says. Who are you? Harry Potter. The silence stretches between them, and Harry's mind is racing. This doesn't make sense. There can't be two Harry Potters. Unless Dumbledore lied. Unless Dumbledore hid the real Harry Potter somewhere else, gave him to someone else, and told Snape to raise a decoy. But why? What purpose would that serve? Before Harry can ask, footsteps echo down the corridor. Snape appears, robes billowing, and his face is white with fury. What have you done? He hisses, and Harry doesn't know if he's talking to him or the other Harry, or both of them. Quirrell had the stone, the other Harry says. Voldemort was there. We stopped him. Snape's eyes flick between them, and Harry sees the calculation there. The rapid assessment. Then Snape grabs Harry, his Harry, by the arm and drags him away. Come with me. Now. Harry doesn't resist. He follows Snape down to the dungeons, into his private office, and waits for the explosion. But Snape doesn't yell. He just stands there, staring at Harry, and then he says, You disobeyed me. Yes, sir. You put yourself in danger. Yes, sir. Snape's hand moves, and for a moment Harry thinks he's going to strike him. But instead, Snape grips his shoulder, hard enough to bruise, and says, Do not ever do that again. Do you understand me? I cannot protect you if you throw yourself into danger. And Harry hears what Snape isn't saying. I cannot lose you. I cannot fail Lily again. I understand, sir, Harry says quietly. Snape releases him and turns away, and Harry sees his hands shaking, just slightly, but enough to notice. And Harry realizes that Snape was terrified. Not angry, terrified. Because the vow binds him to protect Harry, and if Harry dies, Snape dies too. Go to your dormitory, Snape says, his voice rough. We will discuss this later. Harry leaves, but his mind is still spinning. Who is the other Harry Potter? Why are there two of them? And what is Dumbledore hiding? He doesn't get answers that night, or the next day. But at the end-of-year feast, when Dumbledore awards Gryffindor enough points to win the House Cup, he mentions Harry Potter by name, the boy who lived, who stopped Voldemort from stealing the Philosopher's Stone. And everyone cheers, and the other Harry, the Gryffindor Harry, sits at the Gryffindor table looking embarrassed and overwhelmed. And Harry, Alaric Snape, sits at the Slytherin table and watches, and he understands. There are two Harry Potters, one raised by Snape, hidden away as Alaric Snape, and one raised by someone else, living openly as Harry Potter. and Dumbledore orchestrated all of it. The question is, why? Harry doesn't get the chance to ask. The school year ends, and he returns to Spinner's End for the summer. Snape doesn't mention the other Harry Potter. Doesn't explain. Just goes back to the usual routine: occlumency drills, potion brewing, dark arts theory. But Harry can't let it go. So one night, after a particularly brutal occlumency session, he asks, "Sir, who is Harry Potter?" Snape goes very still. "What do you mean?" "The Gryffindor. The one everyone thinks is the boy who lived. Who is he?" Snape is silent for a long time, and then he says, "He is a decoy. Dumbledore's insurance policy. In case you were discovered, in case the Dark Lord found you, there would be another target. Another boy with your face, your name, your scar. But how? How can there be two of us?" "Polyjuice potion," Snape says. "Permanent polyjuice. Brewed with your hair when you were an infant. The boy was an orphan, no family, no one to miss him. Dumbledore gave him your identity and sent him to live with a family loyal to the Order. And he has been living as Harry Potter ever since." Harry's mind reels. "So I'm the real Harry Potter. You are Alaric Snape," Snape says sharply. "You are my ward. That is all you need to know. But it's not all Harry needs to know. Because if there's another Harry Potter, another boy living his life, then what does that make him? A spare? A backup plan? A tool in Dumbledore's grand design?" The anger builds slowly over the summer, and by the time Harry returns to Hogwarts for his second year, it's a cold, hard knot in his chest. Dumbledore manipulated him, used him, and Harry is going to find out why. Second year begins, and with it, new mysteries. There are whispers in the corridors, messages written in blood on the walls. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Students are being petrified, turned to stone by some unseen force, and the school is in a panic. Harry knows what this is. Snape taught him about the Chamber of Secrets, about Salazar Slytherin's hidden chamber, and the monster within. A basilisk, a giant serpent that kills with a glance. And Harry, with his Parseltongue ability that he's kept hidden even from Snape, knows he can control it. The question is, should he? Because here's the thing. Harry is tired of being Dumbledore's pawn, tired of being hidden away, tired of being the spare, tired of watching the other Harry Potter get all the glory. And if there's a basilisk in the school, a weapon that only he can control, then maybe it's time to take matters into his own hands. But first, he needs to find the chamber, and he needs to do it before anyone else does. Harry starts researching, spending every free moment in the library, digging through old records and histories of Hogwarts. He learns that the chamber was opened 50 years ago, that a student died, that Hagrid was expelled for it. But Harry doesn't believe Hagrid opened the chamber. Hagrid is too soft, too kind. Someone else opened it, someone who knew Parseltongue, and then Harry finds it, a name in an old trophy case. Tom Marvolo Riddle, a student from 50 years ago who received an award for special services to the school. The same year the chamber was opened. Harry takes the name to Snap. "Sir, do you know this person?" Tom Riddle. Snape's face goes pale. "Where did you hear that name?" "I found it in the trophy case. He was a student here 50 years ago. I think he opened the Chamber of Secrets." Snape sits down heavily. Tom Riddle is the Dark Lord's birth name. Before he became Voldemort, he was Tom Riddle. And yes, he opened the chamber. He controlled the basilisk. And he killed a student with it. Harry's mind races. Voldemort opened the chamber. Voldemort controlled the basilisk, which means the basilisk is still down there, waiting. And if Harry can find it, if he can control it, he'll have a weapon that even Voldemort once wielded. "I need to find the chamber," Harry says. "Absolutely not," Snape snaps. "You will stay away from the chamber. You will not investigate. You will not put yourself in danger. Am I understood?" "Yes, sir." But Harry is lying, because he's going to find the chamber. He's going to find the basilisk, and he's going to prove that he's not just Dumbledore's spare. He's not just Snape's ward. He's Harry Potter, and he's going to take control of his own destiny. Part 3 of 3. What if Snape raised Harry? 6,000 words. Harry finds the Chamber of Secrets in February of his second year, and he does it the way Snape taught him, through research, observation, and ruthless logic. The entrance is in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, hidden behind a sink marked with a tiny serpent. Harry speaks Parseltongue, the snake language he's never told anyone about, not even Snape, and the sink slides open to reveal a pipe leading down into darkness. He doesn't go down immediately. That would be reckless Gryffindor behavior, and Harry is not a Gryffindor. Instead, he spends 2 weeks preparing. He brews an antidote to basilisk venom, using the recipe from Moste Potente potions that Snape gave him for Christmas. It's a complex potion, requiring ingredients he has to steal from Snape's private stores, and it takes him 3 attempts to get it right. But when he finally succeeds, he has 2 vials, one to take with him, and one to leave hidden in his dormitory in case he doesn't come back. He also brews a pepper-up potion enhanced with powdered moonstone, something the Half-Blood Prince's notes taught him, that will keep him alert and focused for hours. And he takes the vial of Felix Felicis that Snape gave him before first year, because if there was ever a time to use liquid luck, it's when facing a 60-foot serpent that can kill with a glance. On the night he descends into the chamber, Harry leaves a note on his bed, not for his dorm mates, but for Snape. It says simply, "Gone to the chamber. If I don't return, the basilisk killed me. The antidote is in my trunk. A.S." It's cold, factual, and exactly the kind of message Snape would leave if their positions were reversed. Harry slides down the pipe, lands in a tunnel filled with rat bones and filth, and follows it deeper into the earth. The tunnel opens into a massive chamber, lined with serpent statues and lit by an eerie green glow. At the far end is a statue of Salazar Slytherin's face, and standing in front of it is a figure Harry recognizes, Tom Riddle. Except it's not really Tom Riddle. It's a memory, a shade preserved in a diary that's been possessing students and using them to open the chamber. Harry knows this because he's been watching, observing, and he saw Ginny Weasley, Ron's little sister, acting strangely. He saw her sneaking off to the bathroom, saw her writing in a blank diary, and he put the pieces together. "Harry Potter, the shade of Tom Riddle says," and his voice echoes through the chamber. Or should I say, Alaric Snape. How curious. The boy who lived, hiding under a false name. Harry keeps his face neutral, his Occlumency walls solid. Tom Riddle. Or should I say, Lord Voldemort. How curious. The Dark Lord, reduced to a memory in a diary. Riddle's eyes narrow. "You know who I am. Snape told me you opened this chamber 50 years ago. You killed Moaning Myrtle, and now you're using Ginny Weasley to do it again." "Very clever," Riddle says, and he sounds almost impressed. "But not clever enough. You see, I've been draining the Weasley girl's life force, using it to become more solid, more real, and soon I'll be strong enough to leave this chamber and return to the world. And you, Harry Potter, will be the first to die." Harry doesn't flinch. "You're welcome to try." Riddle laughs, and it's a cold, cruel sound. Then he turns to the statue of Slytherin and speaks in Parseltongue. "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." The statue's mouth opens, and Harry hears it. The sound of something massive moving through stone. The basilisk is coming. Harry doesn't panic. He's prepared for this. He drinks the Felix Felicis in one gulp, feels the warmth spread through his body, the sudden certainty that everything will work out. Then he closes his eyes because looking at a basilisk is death. And he listens. The basilisk emerges from the statue's mouth with a sound like grinding stone, and Harry hears it moving across the floor, hears the scrape of scales on stone. He speaks in Parseltongue, the language coming naturally to him. "Stop. I am a speaker. I command you to stop." The basilisk hesitates. Harry can hear it, the way its movement slows, the way it's confused. Because it's been commanded by Riddle, but now there's another speaker, another voice giving orders. "Kill him," Riddle shouts. "Kill Harry Potter." But Harry speaks again, his voice stronger, more confident. "I am the heir of Slytherin. I am your master. You will obey me." It's a lie, of course. Harry isn't the heir of Slytherin. But the basilisk doesn't know that. And with the Felix Felicis running through his veins, Harry's voice carries a weight, a certainty that makes the lie sound like truth. The basilisk stops moving. Harry can hear it breathing, a deep, rasping sound, and he knows it's waiting for his command. "Impossible," Riddle hisses. "You cannot control it. You are not the heir. Neither are you," Harry says, his eyes still closed. "You're a memory, a shade. You have no power here." And then Harry gives the basilisk its command. "Return to your chamber. Sleep." and do not emerge unless I call you." The basilisk obeys. Harry hears it turning, sliding back toward the statue, and then the sound of it disappearing into the depths. And when the chamber is silent again, Harry opens his eyes and looks at Riddle. Riddle's face is twisted with fury. "You think you've won? You think you can just walk away?" "I think," Harry says calmly, "that you're fading. Ginny Weasley is waking up, and without her life force, you're going back into the diary where you belong." And it's true. Harry can see it, the way Riddle is becoming translucent, the way he's flickering like a candle in the wind, because Ginny is waking up, lying on the floor of the chamber, and without her to drain, Riddle has no anchor to the physical world. "This isn't over, Potter," Riddle says, his voice fading. "I will return, and when I do, I will kill you." "Get in line," Harry says. Riddle disappears, sucked back into the diary, and Harry picks it up. It's a small black book, innocuous-looking, but Harry can feel the dark magic radiating from it. This is a Horcrux, he realizes, a piece of Voldemort's soul, preserved in an object. And if there's one, there might be more. He pockets the diary and turns to Ginny Weasley. She's unconscious but breathing, and Harry knows he needs to get her out of the chamber before anyone realizes what happened. He levitates her body, a spell he learned from Snape, and makes his way back through the tunnel, up the pipe, and into Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. He leaves Ginny outside the Gryffindor common room, where someone will find her, and then he goes back to the Slytherin dormitory. He doesn't tell anyone what happened. Doesn't brag, doesn't seek recognition. He just goes to bed, and the next morning, when the school is buzzing with news that Ginny Weasley was found unconscious and the attacks have stopped, Harry says nothing. But Snape knows. Of course Snape knows. Because when Harry goes to potions class that day, Snape's eyes find his immediately, and there's a question there. Harry gives the barest nod, and Snape's jaw tightens. After class, Snape pulls him aside. "You went to the chamber?" "Yes, sir." "You faced the basilisk?" "Yes, sir." "And you survived?" "Obviously, sir." Snape stares at him for a long moment, and then he does something unexpected. He reaches out and grips Harry's shoulder, hard enough to hurt, and says, "You are either the bravest or the most foolish boy I have ever met. I have not yet decided which." "Can't I be both, sir?" Snape's lips twitch, almost a smile, and then he releases Harry and turns away. "Get out of my sight, Potter, and do not ever do something that reckless again." But they both know Harry will, because that's who he is. That's who Snape made him. Third year brings new complications, and they all revolve around one name, Sirius Black. The news breaks over the summer. Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban, the first person to ever do so, and he's coming for Harry Potter. Except Harry isn't Harry Potter. He's Alaric's Snape, and Sirius Black doesn't know he exists. But Snape knows, and Snape is terrified. Harry can see it in the way Snape's hands shake when he reads the Daily Prophet, in the way he wards Spinner's End with every protection spell he knows, in the way he watches Harry constantly, as if expecting Sirius to appear out of thin air and kill him. "Sir," Harry says one night, after a particularly intense Occlumency session, "why are you so afraid of Sirius Black?" Snape's face goes cold. "I am not afraid. You are. I can see it." "What did he do to you?" Snape is silent for a long time, and then he says, "When I was 16, Sirius Black tried to kill me. He told me how to get past the Whomping Willow, knowing that Remus Lupin was a werewolf and would be there, transformed and dangerous. I went down the tunnel, and I nearly died. Your father saved me at the last moment, but only because Dumbledore would have expelled them all if I had been killed. Sirius Black is a murderer, Potter. He killed Peter Pettigrew and 12 muggles with a single curse, and he betrayed your parents to the Dark Lord. If he finds you, he will kill you." Harry processes this. Sirius Black, his father's best friend, tried to kill Snape, and then betrayed his parents, and now he's escaped from Azkaban and is hunting Harry Potter. "But he doesn't know about me," Harry says. "He thinks Harry Potter is the Gryffindor. He'll go after him. Not me." "Perhaps," Snape says, "but I will not take that chance. You will stay close to me this year. You will not wander the castle alone, and if you see Sirius Black, you will run. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." But Harry has no intention of running, because if Sirius Black is hunting Harry Potter, then Harry needs to know why. He needs to understand what happened the night his parents died, and the only way to do that is to confront Sirius Black himself. Third year at Hogwarts is tense from the start. Dementors are stationed around the school, guarding against Sirius Black, and their presence affects everyone. The Dementors are creatures of despair, feeding on happiness and hope, and they make the castle feel cold and oppressive. But Harry, with his Occlumency training, is less affected than most. He can feel the Dementors' influence, the way they pull at his emotions. But his mental walls hold. He doesn't hear his mother's screams like the other Harry Potter does. He doesn't collapse on the Hogwarts Express when the Dementors board the train. He just sits in his compartment, walls up, and waits for them to leave. Draco Malfoy, sitting across from him, is not so lucky. Draco goes pale and shaky, and Harry watches with detached interest. Occlumency, Harry says quietly. Build walls. Keep them out. Draco stares at him. You know Occlumency. Snape taught me. It helps. Draco nods slowly, and Harry sees the respect in his eyes. Because Occlumency is advanced magic, the kind of thing most adult wizards can't master, and Harry has been doing it since he was 3. The new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor is Remus Lupin, and Harry recognizes him immediately from Snape's memories. One of the Marauders, one of the people who tormented Snape for 7 years. Harry's hatred is instant and visceral. Lupin is everything Snape said he would be. Charming, friendly, beloved by the students. He teaches practical defense, brings in creatures like boggarts and grindylows, and makes the class fun. Everyone loves him. Everyone except Harry. Harry sits in the back of Lupin's classroom, silent and watchful. And he sees what the others don't. He sees the way Lupin's eyes linger on the other Harry Potter, the Gryffindor, with a mixture of sadness and affection. He sees the way Lupin avoids looking at Snape in the corridors, and he sees the way Lupin takes a potion from Snape once a month, a potion Harry recognizes as Wolfsbane. Remus Lupin is a werewolf, and Snape is brewing the potion that keeps him sane during the full moon. Harry files this information away and waits, because if Lupin is a werewolf and Sirius Black tried to use that to kill Snape, then there's a connection here. Something Harry needs to understand. The opportunity comes in June, near the end of the school year. Harry is in the library, researching animagi for a transfiguration essay, when he overhears a conversation between Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley. Scabbers is gone, Ron is saying, his voice miserable. I think Crookshanks ate him. I'm sure he didn't, Hermione says, but she doesn't sound convinced. Harry looks up. Scabbers. Ron's rat. The rat that's been in the Weasley family for 12 years, longer than any normal rat should live. Harry's mind races. Peter Pettigrew was an animagus, a rat animagus, and he supposedly died 12 years ago, killed by Sirius Black. But what if he didn't die? What if he's been hiding as a rat all this time? Harry stands up, abandoning his essay, and follows Ron and Hermione out of the library. They're heading toward Hagrid's hut, and Harry trails behind them, invisible in the shadows. He sees them talking to Hagrid, sees the giant man trying to comfort Ron, and then he sees it. A rat scurrying across the pumpkin patch, heading for the Whomping Willow. Harry doesn't hesitate. He runs after the rat, dodging the Whomping Willow's branches, and presses the knot at the base of the tree that freezes it. The same knot Snape told him about, the one that leads to the Shrieking Shack. Harry crawls into the tunnel and follows it, wand drawn, heart pounding. He emerges in the Shrieking Shack and hears voices, angry voices. He creeps up the stairs and peers through a crack in the door. And there in the dusty room is Sirius Black. Gaunt, filthy, with matted hair and wild eyes. He's holding the rat, Scabbers, and he's shouting at it. Show yourself, Peter. Show yourself, you coward. And then the rat transforms. It becomes a man, short and balding, with watery eyes and a pointed nose. Peter Pettigrew. Alive, Harry's world tilts. Peter Pettigrew is alive, which means Sirius Black didn't kill him. Which means Sirius Black might not be the traitor everyone thinks he is. The door bursts open, and Remus Lupin enters, wand drawn. But instead of attacking Sirius, he embraces him. Sirius Lupin says, his voice choked, I should have known. I should have trusted you. It's all right, Moony, Sirius says. We have him now. We have Peter. And then another voice, cold and sharp. How touching. Snape sweeps into the room, wand pointed at Sirius, and his face is twisted with hatred. Sirius Black. Finally, I have you. Severus, Lupin says, stepping between them. Wait. Listen. Peter is the traitor. Peter betrayed James and Lily. Sirius is innocent. Lies, Snape hisses. Black was the secret keeper. Black betrayed them. No, Sirius says, his voice desperate. We switched. At the last minute, we made Peter the secret keeper because I was too obvious a target. And Peter went straight to Voldemort and told him where they were hiding. Snape's wand doesn't waver. More lies. You expect me to believe that Peter Pettigrew, the weakest of the Marauders, was capable of such betrayal? Yes, Sirius says, because he was weak. Because he was a coward. And because Voldemort terrified him. Harry steps into the room. He's telling the truth. Everyone turns to stare at him. Snape's face goes white. Potter, what are you doing here? Listening, Harry says. And he's telling the truth. Peter Pettigrew is alive. He's been hiding as Ron Weasley's rat for 12 years. And if he's alive, then Sirius Black didn't kill him. Snape's wand trembles. You cannot know that. I can, Harry says, because I've been trained to recognize lies. And Sirius Black is not lying. The room is silent, and then Peter Pettigrew makes his move. He transforms back into a rat and bolts for the door. Harry reacts on instinct, casting a spell Snape taught him. Incarcerus. Ropes fly from his wand, wrapping around the rat and binding it tight. Peter transforms back, struggling against the bonds, and Harry stands over him with his wand pointed at his chest. You betrayed my parents, Harry says, his voice cold. You told Voldemort where they were hiding, and you let Sirius Black take the blame. I had no choice, Peter wails. The Dark Lord would have killed me. I had to tell him. You had a choice, Harry says. You chose to be a coward. Snape is staring at Harry, and there's something like shock in his eyes, because Harry just defended Sirius Black. Harry just proved that the man Snape hates most in the world is innocent. We need to take him to Dumbledore, Lupin says. We need to clear Sirius's name. But before anyone can move, the moon rises, full and bright, shining through the broken window. And Remus Lupin begins to transform. Harry has seen a lot of things in his life, but he's never seen a werewolf transformation. It's horrifying. Lupin's body contorts, bones breaking and reforming, fur sprouting from his skin, and within seconds there's a massive wolf standing where Lupin was. He didn't take his potion, Sirius says, his voice panicked. Severus, did you give him his potion? He didn't come to collect it, Snape says, and there's a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. I left it in his office, but he didn't drink it. The werewolf lunges, and chaos erupts. Sirius transforms into a massive black dog and tackles the werewolf, and they crash through the wall and out into the night. Snape grabs Harry and pulls him back, shielding him with his body, and Peter Pettigrew uses the distraction to break free of his bonds and disappear. No, Harry shouts, but it's too late. Peter is gone. Snape drags Harry out of the shack and back through the tunnel, and they emerge near the Whomping Willow to find Dumbledore waiting. The headmaster's face is grave, and behind him are Aurors, wands drawn. Severus, Dumbledore says. What happened? Snape explains, his voice clipped and precise, and Dumbledore listens without interrupting. When Snape finishes, Dumbledore turns to Harry. Is this true, Harry? Sirius Black is innocent? Harry meets Dumbledore's eyes, and for the first time, he doesn't look away. Yes, sir. Peter Pettigrew is alive. He's the traitor. And he just escaped. Dumbledore sighs, and he suddenly looks very old. Then we have much to discuss. The aftermath of that night is complicated. Sirius Black is captured, but instead of being sent back to Azkaban, he's given a trial. A real trial, with Veritaserum and witnesses. Peter Pettigrew is still at large, but the evidence is clear. Sirius was not the secret keeper. He did not betray the Potters, and he is innocent of the murders he was accused of. Sirius is exonerated and released, and the wizarding world is in an uproar. The boy who lived's godfather, innocent all along. It's a scandal, and the ministry scrambles to save face. But Harry doesn't care about any of that, because Sirius Black wants to meet him. The real him. Alaric Snape. They meet in Dumbledore's office, with Snape present, and it's awkward and tense. Sirius looks at Harry with James's face and Lily's eyes, and his expression is complicated. Grief, guilt, hope, all mixed together. You look like him, Sirius says quietly. Like James. But you have Lily's eyes. I know, Harry says. I'm your godfather. Did you know that? I know. Sirius hesitates. I could if you wanted. You could come live with me. I have a house. Grimmauld Place. It's not much, but it's yours if you want it. Harry looks at Snape. Snape's face is carefully neutral, but Harry can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands are clenched. And Harry realizes that Snape is afraid that Harry will leave, afraid that after 12 years of raising him, Harry will choose Sirius over him. No, Harry says, turning back to Sirius. Thank you, but no. Snape is my guardian. Spinner's End is my home. I'm not leaving. Sirius's face falls, but he nods. I understand, but can I see you? Sometimes. I'd like to get to know you. Harry considers this. Sirius Black is his godfather, his father's best friend, and he's innocent. But he's also a stranger, and Harry doesn't trust strangers. Maybe, Harry says. We'll see. It's not a yes, but it's not a no either. And for now, that's enough. 4th year is the Triwizard Tournament, and it's a disaster from the start. Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, even though he didn't enter, and suddenly he's bound by a magical contract to compete in a tournament designed to kill students. Except it's not just Harry's name, it's both Harry Potter's. Alaric Snape and the Gryffindor Harry Potter. Both names come out of the goblet, and the entire Great Hall erupts in chaos. Dumbledore's face goes pale. This is impossible. The goblet cannot choose 2 champions from the same school. They're not from the same school, Snape says, his voice deadly quiet. One is Harry Potter, the other is Alaric Snape. The goblet sees them as 2 different people. But they're the same person, McGonagall says, confused. No, Snape says, they're not. And then the truth comes out. The whole truth, about the polyjuice potion, about the decoy, about Dumbledore's plan to hide the real Harry Potter by creating a fake one. The students are shocked, the professors are outraged, and Harry, standing in the middle of it all, feels nothing but cold fury. You used me, Harry says to Dumbledore. You created a fake Harry Potter and used me as bait. I was protecting you, Dumbledore says. If Voldemort returned, he would go after the public Harry Potter, not you. You would be safe. Safe, Harry's voice is sharp. You bound me to an unbreakable vow with Snape. You hid me away from the world. You manipulated my entire life. And you call that protection? Harry, my name is Alaric, Harry snaps. Harry Potter is dead. You killed him the day you gave him to Snape. The silence in the Great Hall is deafening. And then Harry turns and walks out, and Snape follows him. They don't speak until they're back in Snape's office. And then Harry says, I'm competing in the tournament. You don't have to, Snape says. We can find a way to break the contract. No, Harry says. I'm competing because I'm going to win. And I'm going to prove that I'm not Dumbledore's pawn. I'm not anyone's pawn. Snape studies him for a long moment, and then he nods. Very well. Then we will prepare, and you will win. And they do prepare. Snape trains Harry relentlessly, teaching him spells and strategies, brewing potions that will give him an edge. The first task is dragons, and Harry uses a combination of Felix Felicis and a conjunctivitis curse to blind the dragon and retrieve the golden egg. The second task is the lake, and Harry brews gillyweed and uses his Parseltongue to negotiate with the merpeople. The third task is the maze, and Harry navigates it with the same cold calculation he uses for everything else. But when he reaches the center of the maze and grabs the Triwizard Cup, everything goes wrong, because the cup is a portkey, and it transports him to a graveyard. And standing there, waiting for him, is Peter Pettigrew, and a cauldron, and a bundle of robes that looks almost like a baby. Voldemort is back, and Harry is about to face him. Peter performs the ritual, using Harry's blood, and Voldemort rises from the cauldron, fully restored. He's tall and pale, with red eyes and a snake-like face, and he looks at Harry with a mixture of hatred and curiosity. Harry Potter, Voldemort says, the boy who lived. Come to die. Not today, Harry says, and he draws his wand. The duel is brutal. Voldemort is powerful, more powerful than anyone Harry has ever faced, but Harry has been trained by Snape. He knows the dark arts, knows how to counter them, and he fights with a cold, calculated precision that surprises even Voldemort. Their wands connect, brother wands with phoenix feather cores, and the priori incantatem effect occurs. Ghosts emerge from Voldemort's wand: Cedric Diggory, Frank Bryce, Bertha Jorkins, and then James and Lily Potter. Lily's ghost looks at Harry, and her expression is heartbroken. Harry, she whispers, My baby. I'm not your baby, Harry says, his voice cold. I'm Snape's, and then he breaks the connection, grabs the port key, and disappears. He reappears in the maze, and the crowd erupts in cheers. But Harry doesn't celebrate. He just walks to Snape, hands him the Triwizard Cup, and says Voldemort is back. Snape's face goes white. Are you hurt? No, sir. Then we need to tell Dumbledore. Now, the wizarding world doesn't believe them at first. The Ministry denies that Voldemort has returned, calls Harry and Dumbledore liars, and launches a smear campaign against them. But Harry doesn't care. He knows the truth, and he's going to be ready. Fifth year is Dolores Umbridge, and she's everything Harry hates, bureaucratic, cruel, and stupid. She takes over Defense Against the Dark Arts and bans practical magic, forcing the students to read theory instead. She also targets Harry, calling him a liar and an attention seeker, and gives him detentions where she makes him write lines with a blood quill. Harry endures it for exactly one detention. Then he goes to Snape. She's using a blood quill on me, Harry says, showing Snape the scars on his hand. I will not tolerate it. Snape's face goes dangerously cold. No, you will not. The next day, Umbridge is called to Dumbledore's office. Harry doesn't know what Snape said to her, but she never gives him detention again, and she avoids looking at him in the corridors. But Umbridge is still a problem, and Harry decides to do something about it. He leaks information to the Daily Prophet, anonymously about Snape's past as a Death Eater and his role as a spy. It's a calculated move, designed to make Umbridge trust Snape, to make her think he's on her side, and it works. Umbridge starts confiding in Snape, telling him about her plans, and Snape passes the information to Dumbledore and the Order. Harry also starts teaching students practical defense, in secret, in the Room of Requirement. Not because he cares about them, but because he needs allies. He needs people who can fight when Voldemort's forces come. And they will come. Harry knows it. Sixth year is when everything changes. Dumbledore starts taking Harry on trips, showing him memories of Voldemort's past, teaching him about Horcruxes, and Harry realizes that the diary he destroyed in second year was a Horcrux, a piece of Voldemort's soul. How many are there? Harry asks. I believe 7, Dumbledore says. The diary, a ring, a locket, a cup, a diadem the snake Nagini, and one more. And me? Harry asks. Am I a Horcrux? Dumbledore's silence is answer enough. Harry goes to Snape that night and tells him everything. I'm a Horcrux. Part of Voldemort's soul is inside me, and the only way to kill Voldemort is to kill me first. Snape's face goes white. No. Yes, sir. I will not allow it. The vow says you have to protect me until Voldemort is defeated, Harry says. But if I have to die to defeat him, then the vow will be fulfilled. No, Snape says again, and his voice breaks. I will not lose you. I will not lose Lily's son. And for the first time in Harry's life, he sees Snape cry. Not sobs, just silent tears running down his face. And Harry doesn't know what to do. So he does the only thing he can think of. He steps forward and puts a hand on Snape's shoulder. It's all right, sir, Harry says quietly. I'm not afraid. I am, Snape whispers. The end comes in 7th year. Voldemort's forces attack Hogwarts, and the battle is brutal. Harry fights alongside Snape, alongside the Order, alongside his Slytherin housemates. Draco Malfoy is there, wand drawn, fighting Death Eaters despite his father's allegiance. Theodore Nott is there, Blaise Zabini, Daphne Greengrass, all of them, fighting for Hogwarts. And when Voldemort calls for Harry to surrender, to come to the Forbidden Forest and die, Harry goes, not because he's brave, but because it's the only way. Snape tries to stop him. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Harry says. It's the only way to end this. Then I'm coming with you. No, sir. You need to stay here. You need to survive. For her. Snape's face crumples, and he grabs Harry and pulls him into an embrace. It's the first time Snape has ever hugged him, and it's awkward and desperate, and everything Harry never knew he needed. Live, Potter, Snape whispers. For her. Yes, sir, Harry says, and then he walks into the forest. Voldemort is waiting, surrounded by Death Eaters, and he raises his wand. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, come to die. Yes, Harry says simply. Voldemort casts the killing curse, and Harry doesn't dodge. The green light hits him, and everything goes black. But Harry doesn't die. He wakes in a white space, and Dumbledore is there, smiling. "You have a choice, Harry," Dumbledore says. "You can move on, or you can go back. What happens if I go back? The Horcrux inside you is destroyed. Voldemort is mortal, and you have a chance to defeat him." Harry doesn't hesitate. "I'm going back." He wakes in the forest, and Voldemort is standing over him triumphant. Harry Potter is dead. But Harry isn't dead. He's alive. And when Voldemort turns his back, Harry strikes. The final duel is everything Harry has trained for. Every spell Snape taught him. Every strategy, every ounce of cunning and calculation. And when their wands connect one last time, Harry doesn't hesitate. He disarms Voldemort, catches the Elder Wand, and watches as Voldemort's killing curse rebounds and destroys him. Voldemort is dead. The war is over. And Harry is alive. He returns to Hogwarts, and Snape is waiting. Snape doesn't say anything, just pulls Harry into another embrace, and this time Harry hugs him back. "Thank you, sir," Harry says quietly. "For what? For keeping me alive? For teaching me? For being my guardian?" Snape pulls back and looks at him, and there's something soft in his eyes, something Harry has never seen before. "You are not just Lily's son, Potter. You are mine as well." And Harry, for the first time in his life, smiles. A real smile. "Yes, sir, I am." The wizarding world celebrates, and Harry Potter, the boy who lived, is hailed as a hero. But Harry doesn't care about fame or glory. He goes back to Spinner's End, back to the lab kitchen and the bubbling cauldrons and the smell of potions. Back to Snape, because that's where he belongs. That's home. And that is what would have happened if Severus Snape raised Harry Potter. A darker, colder, more calculated Harry. A Harry who doesn't trust easily, who doesn't love easily, but who is fiercely loyal to the one person who kept him alive. A Harry who is Slytherin to his core, who fights with cunning instead of courage, and who proves that you don't have to be a Gryffindor to be a hero. Would it have been better than the original timeline? Maybe not. Harry would have missed out on Ron and Hermione's friendship, on the warmth of the Weasley family, on the love and acceptance he found at Hogwarts. But he would have gained something else. A father figure who, despite his coldness and his bitterness, would have died to protect him. A guardian who taught him to survive in a world that wanted him dead. And a home, however dark and oppressive, that was his. So yeah, if Snape raised Harry, everything would have been different. But in the end, Harry still would have won. Because that's what Snape taught him. To survive, to adapt, and to never ever give up.